The whispers have finally turned into a roar, and what insiders are now revealing about Meghan Markle's behavior behind closed doors is nothing short of explosive. A former staffer has broken their silence, and the details they are sharing paint a picture of a woman who is allegedly impossible to work with, controlling to the point of obsession, and willing to throw anyone under the bus to protect her image. The Paris meltdown, as insiders are now calling it, might just be the most damning example yet of Meghan's pattern of behavior. And trust me, this is one story she desperately tried to keep buried. Picture this: Meghan and her team are in Paris, one of the most iconic cities in the world, and they are planning to film content for her brand. Sounds harmless enough, right? Wrong, because the location Meghan allegedly chose was not just any spot in Paris. Sources claim she wanted to film near the Pont tunnel, the very place where Princess Diana lost her life in that tragic car crash back in 1997. Staff members were reportedly horrified. They begged her, pleaded with her, warned her that this would be a public relations disaster of epic proportions. But according to insiders, Meghan dismissed their concerns entirely, allegedly brushing them off as if they were being dramatic and overreacting. Fast forward to when the content dropped, and the backlash was immediate and brutal. The public was outraged. The media tore into her for what they saw as a tone-deaf, exploitative move that disrespected Diana's memory. And here is where it gets even worse. Instead of owning the decision, instead of taking responsibility for ignoring her team's advice, Meghan allegedly turned her fury on the very people who had tried to stop her. Sources say she went absolutely nuclear, blaming her PR team for the disaster, and refusing to acknowledge that she had been warned multiple times. One insider described her reaction as terrifying and completely unhinged, but the Paris horror story is just the tip of the iceberg. Former employees are now coming forward with tales of midnight meltdowns, 1 a.m. phone calls demanding rewrites, and red carpet rage that left staff members shaking. One ex-staffer revealed that Meghan once screamed backstage at an event because she felt the lighting made her look like a politician, not a princess. Another described being woken in the middle of the night, forced to scramble and make changes to press releases because Meghan had suddenly decided she did not like the wording. And when her team could not keep up with her impossible expectations, she allegedly blamed them for every negative headline, every criticism, every tiny imperfection. 10 PR professionals in 5 years. That is the revolving door of staff departures that has defined Meghan's post-royal life. And the latest casualty, Emily Robinson, is just one more name on a very long list. But the real question is this: what is really going on behind the scenes? Let's dig deeper into the Paris disaster, because the more you learn about what allegedly happened, the more shocking it becomes. According to sources close to the situation, the decision to film near the Pont tunnel was not some accidental oversight or innocent mistake. Meghan reportedly knew exactly where she was, and she allegedly pushed forward with the plan despite urgent warnings from her team. Insiders claim that multiple staff members raised red flags, telling her in no uncertain terms that filming anywhere near the site of Diana's death would be seen as exploitative, disrespectful, and a PR nightmare waiting to happen. But here is the thing: Meghan allegedly believed she could control the narrative. Sources say she thought that by carefully crafting the content and the messaging, she could avoid backlash and maybe even position herself as someone honoring Diana's legacy. One former staffer described it as a level of delusion that was honestly hard to comprehend. They warned her that the public would not see it that way, that no amount of spin could make this look good, and that she was playing with fire. But according to insiders, Meghan dismissed their concerns entirely, allegedly telling them they were overthinking it and that she knew what she was doing. When the content finally went live, the reaction was swift and brutal. Social media exploded with outrage. Royal commentators condemned the move. Even some of Meghan's most loyal supporters struggled to defend her on this one. The headlines were ruthless, accusing her of using Diana's memory for clout, of being tone-deaf and opportunistic, and of showing a shocking lack of self-awareness. It was the kind of PR disaster that should have been easily avoidable, and it was all because Meghan allegedly refused to listen to the professionals whose job it was to protect her image. But instead of taking responsibility, sources say Meghan went into full blame mode. She allegedly called an emergency meeting with her team and tore into them, accusing them of failing to prepare her for the backlash and questioning why they had not done more to control the narrative. Staff members were reportedly stunned. They had warned her repeatedly, and now she was acting as if they had blindsided her. One insider described the atmosphere as toxic, saying that Meghan's refusal to admit she had made a mistake created an environment where no one felt safe speaking up. Another source revealed that after the Paris debacle, several team members started quietly looking for new jobs because they could not handle the constant scapegoating. And here is the kicker: this was not an isolated incident. The Paris meltdown was just one example of a pattern that insiders say has defined Meghan's entire post-royal career. She makes the decisions, ignores the advice, and then blames everyone else when things go wrong. It is a cycle that has driven away some of the best PR professionals in the business, and it is a cycle that shows no signs of stopping. The question is, how long can she keep this up? Now let's talk about what it was actually like to work for Meghan Markle on a day-to-day basis. Because according to former staffers, the Paris disaster was not even close to being the worst of it. Multiple ex-employees have come forward with stories that paint a picture of a boss who allegedly demanded perfection at all hours, showed zero respect for boundaries, and created an environment where fear and exhaustion became the norm. And one of the most shocking revelations involves those infamous midnight phone calls that left staff members dreading the sound of their phones ringing. Sources say that Meghan would regularly call team members in the middle of the night, sometimes as late as 1 a.m., demanding immediate changes to press releases, scripts, social media posts, or other materials. One former staffer described being woken up at 1:30 in the morning to a barrage of texts and calls because Meghan had suddenly decided she did not like the tone of a statement that was set to go out the next day. The staffer scrambled to make revisions, sent them back for approval, only to receive another round of criticism and demands for further changes. By the time the sun came up, they had barely slept and were already dreading the next crisis. Another insider revealed that these late-night meltdowns were not rare occurrences. They happened regularly, sometimes multiple times a week, and the emotional toll on staff was severe. People were burning out, losing sleep, and struggling to maintain any semblance of work-life balance. But according to sources, Meghan allegedly showed little empathy for what her team was going through. One ex-employee said that when they tried to set boundaries around after-hours communication, Meghan responded coldly, implying that if they were not willing to be available whenever she needed them, perhaps they were not the right fit for the role. And it was not just about the timing of the calls, it was about the way Meghan allegedly communicated during these late-night sessions. Former staffers describe her tone as harsh, critical, and sometimes downright cruel. One source said that Meghan would nitpick every single word, every comma, every piece of punctuation, and if you pushed back or tried to explain the rationale behind a decision, she would shut you down immediately. Another insider claimed that Meghan once told a team member that their work was so bad it was embarrassing, and that they needed to figure out how to do their job properly or leave. The result of all this was a revolving door of exhausted, demoralized staff members who felt like they could never meet Meghan's impossible standards. Some quit without even having another job lined up because they simply could not take it anymore. Others stayed longer than they should have, hoping things would get better, only to realize that the pattern was never going to change. And through it all, sources say Meghan remained completely convinced that she was in the right, that her demands were reasonable, and that anyone who could not handle the pressure was simply not cut out for the job. If you thought the midnight meltdowns were bad, wait until you hear about what allegedly happened backstage at a high-profile red carpet event. This is the story that former staffers still talk about in hushed tones, the one that perfectly encapsulates Meghan's obsession with image control and her willingness to unleash fury on anyone she perceives as threatening her carefully crafted persona. And it all started with something as simple as lighting. According to insiders, Meghan was preparing for a major red carpet appearance, the kind of event where photographers from around the world would be snapping pictures and every angle would be scrutinized. Her team had coordinated every detail, from the dress to the hair to the makeup, ensuring that she would look flawless. But when Meghan stepped into the designated photo area and saw herself on the monitors, sources say she absolutely lost it. She allegedly started screaming that the lighting was terrible, that it was making her look washed out and unflattering, and that whoever was responsible for approving this setup had completely failed her. But here is where it gets even more dramatic. One insider claims that Meghan did not just complain about looking bad. She allegedly screamed that the lighting made her look like a politician, not a princess. Think about that for a second. Not just unflattering, not just tired, but specifically like a politician. Sources say the comment revealed just how deeply Meghan cares about being seen as glamorous, regal, and aspirational, and how terrified she is of being perceived as ordinary or, heaven forbid, aging. The entire team scrambled into crisis mode, frantically adjusting lights, angles, and positions while Meghan stood there fuming. Staff members who witnessed the meltdown described it as one of the most uncomfortable moments they had ever experienced. Meghan was allegedly yelling loud enough that people outside the immediate area could hear, and her anger was directed at everyone, from the lighting technician to the PR coordinator to the assistant who had simply been standing nearby. One former employee said that after the outburst, the mood backstage was so tense that people were afraid to speak or make eye contact. Another source revealed that Meghan did not calm down even after the lighting was adjusted. She allegedly continued to criticize the team throughout the evening, making passive-aggressive comments about their incompetence and lack of attention to detail. And this was not an isolated incident. Insiders say that Meghan's red carpet appearances were often preceded by similar meltdowns, whether it was about her dress not fitting perfectly, her hair not looking exactly how she had envisioned, or some other minor detail that she believed was ruining her image. The pressure she allegedly put on her team to deliver perfection was immense, and the consequences of falling short, even slightly, were brutal. One ex-staffer summed it up perfectly, saying that working a red carpet event with Meghan felt less like supporting a client and more like walking through a minefield minefield, never knowing when the next explosion would happen. Here is a number that should make anyone pause. 10 PR professionals in 5 years. That is the staggering turnover rate that has defined Meghan Markle's post-royal life, and the latest casualty, Emily Robinson, is just the most recent name on a list that keeps growing longer. Think about that for a moment. We are not talking about entry-level assistants or interns who move on after a few months. We are talking about experienced communications directors, seasoned press secretaries, and top-tier PR strategists who came in with high hopes and left quietly. Emily Robinson was supposed to be different. She had an impressive resume, industry connections, and a reputation for handling difficult clients with grace and professionalism. When she took the role as Meghan's communications director, insiders say there was genuine optimism that maybe, just maybe, she would be the one to crack the code and help Meghan turn her image around. But according to sources, it did not take long for the cracks to appear. Robinson allegedly faced the same challenges that every other PR professional before her had encountered. Meghan wanted total control over every message, every statement, every piece of content. Push back, offer a different perspective, or suggest a strategy that Meghan did not immediately agree with, and you were either frozen out or made to feel incompetent. One insider described the dynamic as impossible, saying that Meghan would hire top professionals and then refuse to let them do their jobs. Another source revealed that Robinson tried multiple times to implement strategies that could have improved Meghan's public image, but each time Meghan allegedly rejected the ideas or micromanaged them to the point where they lost all effectiveness. And when the results were not what Meghan wanted, she would allegedly blame the team for not executing her vision properly, even though they had been following her instructions to the letter. The pattern is always the same. A new PR professional comes in, excited to work with someone who has global name recognition and massive potential. They quickly realize that Meghan does not want a strategic partner. She wants someone who will execute her ideas without question and take the blame when things go wrong. The workload is crushing, the hours are brutal, and the emotional toll of constantly being criticized is unbearable. Eventually, they reach a breaking point and leave, often quietly and without fanfare, because speaking out publicly would mean violating their NDA and facing potential legal consequences. And here is the most damning part. One former staffer put it bluntly when they said, "It's not a PR problem, it's a Meghan problem." No amount of talent, experience, or expertise can fix a situation where the client refuses to listen, refuses to take responsibility, and refuses to change. You can hire the best PR team in the world, but if the person at the center of it all is unwilling to be managed, the outcome will always be the same. Another departure, another failed partnership, and another name added to the list. Now let's talk about Prince Harry, because his role in all of this is fascinating and frankly pretty tragic. According to insiders, Harry is not oblivious to the chaos that Meghan creates. He sees the staff turnover, he hears about the meltdowns, and he allegedly tries to smooth things over after particularly brutal incidents. But here is the problem. Sources say that while Harry may apologize to staff members and attempt to play peacemaker, he is completely powerless to actually change Meghan's behavior. And that powerlessness has turned him into an ineffective middleman who can offer sympathy but cannot offer solutions. Former staffers describe a pattern that played out repeatedly. Meghan would unleash on the team whether it was about a press release, a scheduling conflict, or something as trivial as the wrong coffee order. The atmosphere would become toxic, people would be upset or angry, and then hours or sometimes days later, Harry would quietly approach individual staff members to apologize on her behalf. One insider said Harry would often say things like, "I'm sorry, she's under a lot of pressure," or "she didn't mean it the way it came out." But the apologies, while appreciated on a human level, did nothing to prevent the same thing from happening again the following week. Sources say that Harry's unwillingness or inability to push back against Meghan has created a dynamic where she faces zero consequences for her behavior. If your partner is willing to make excuses for you, willing to clean up your messes, and unwilling to hold you accountable, then why would you ever change? One former employee described Harry as genuinely kind and well-meaning, but also as someone who has been completely dominated by Meghan's personality. Another source claimed that in private conversations, Harry would admit that things were difficult and that he wished the working environment could be better, but he never took concrete action to make that happen. And it is not just about protecting Meghan. Insiders say Harry is also protecting himself. The united front that he and Meghan present to the public is crucial to their brand, their business deals, and their image as a power couple taking on the establishment. If Harry were to publicly or even privately challenge Meghan's treatment of staff, it would create cracks in that narrative. So instead, he plays the role of the apologetic husband, the guy who feels bad about what is happening but is not willing to rock the boat. One ex-staffer put it bluntly, saying that Harry's apologies became meaningless after a while because everyone knew that nothing would change. Behind closed doors, sources say the dynamic is even more troubling. Harry allegedly defers to Meghan on almost every major decision, from business ventures to PR strategy to how they manage their household staff. And when things go wrong, he is right there beside her, helping to shift the blame onto someone else. The peacemaker role is really just a performance, a way for Harry to feel like he is doing something without actually addressing the root cause of the problem. So why does Meghan operate this way? Why does she hire experienced professionals and then refuse to let them do their jobs? According to insiders, it all comes down to one thing: control. Meghan allegedly has a pathological need to micromanage every single detail, and that need has sabotaged countless projects, delayed major launches, and left the Sussexes scrambling to salvage whatever is left of their reputation. And the worst part is, sources say she genuinely believes that her way is the only right way, that no one else can be trusted to understand her vision, and that any failure is the result of other people not executing properly. Former staffers describe a work environment where nothing, and I mean nothing, could move forward without Meghan's explicit approval. Press releases had to be reviewed line by line, with Meghan often demanding multiple rewrites over the tiniest wording changes. Social media posts required her sign off on everything from the caption to the emoji selection to the exact time of posting. Even internal documents that the public would never see had to go through her for approval, because she allegedly feared that if she was not involved in every step, something would go wrong and she would lose control of the narrative. One insider revealed that this obsession with control extended to absolutely everything. Meghan would allegedly dictate what staff members could and could not say in meetings, who they were allowed to speak to without her permission, and even how they should phrase their emails. Another source described a situation where a team member sent a simple scheduling email to a potential partner, and Meghan found out and allegedly went ballistic because she had not pre-approved the exact wording. The message was professional, straightforward, and completely appropriate, but because it had not gone through her first, she treated it as a betrayal. And here is where it gets even more frustrating for the people trying to work with her. Meghan's need for control does not just slow things down, it actively prevents good ideas from being implemented. Sources say that talented professionals would come to her with strategies that could have genuinely improved her public image, expanded her brand, or opened new opportunities. But if the idea was not hers, or if it required her to relinquish even a tiny bit of control, she would shut it down. One former employee said that working for Meghan felt like being hired for your expertise and then being told that your expertise did not matter. The result of all this micromanagement has been disastrous. Projects that should have taken weeks dragged on for months because Meghan could not make a decision or kept changing her mind. Launches were delayed because she insisted on perfection that was literally unattainable. Partnerships fell through because potential collaborators got tired of waiting for approvals or dealing with constant revisions. And through it all, Meghan allegedly refused to see that she was the problem. Instead, she would blame her team for not working hard enough, not being creative enough, or not understanding her vision well enough. It is a cycle that has destroyed careers and left a trail of frustrated, burned-out professionals in her wake. Now let's connect the dots, because Meghan's chaotic staffing situation is not happening in a vacuum. It is directly tied to her failure to break into Hollywood, and insiders say that her reputation as a nightmare boss has made her virtually untouchable in an industry that was already skeptical of her talent. The A-listers are avoiding her like the plague, major projects are going nowhere, and the dream of becoming a Hollywood power player is crumbling right before her eyes. And the brutal truth is, it is mostly her own fault. Let's start with the A-list avoidance. Sources say that top-tier celebrities have made it very clear to their teams that they do not want to be photographed with Meghan. We saw this play out at the Fortune Most Powerful Women Summit, where Kamala Harris was conveniently scheduled on a different day. We saw it at the G9 Ventures Business Summit, where Gwyneth Paltrow, Reese Witherspoon, and Diane Sawyer were all present but somehow never ended up in a photo with Meghan. One insider explained that A-listers know that being seen with Meghan is essentially a tacit endorsement, and given her toxic reputation, no one wants to risk their own brand by associating with hers. But it goes deeper than just photo ops. Meghan's inability to land big-name guests for her Netflix show was a massive red flag. If you cannot get anyone significant to appear on your show, it is because people in the industry do not want to work with you. And according to sources, the Whisper network in Hollywood has been brutal. Stories about her treatment of staff, her control-freak tendencies, and her refusal to take direction have spread like wildfire. One industry veteran put it bluntly, saying that if you are rude and lack talent, Hollywood is not interested. You might get one shot based on curiosity or name recognition, but if you blow it, you are done. And then there is Meet Me at the Lake, the book adaptation that Meghan and Harry secured the rights to years ago and still have not produced. Insiders say that part of the problem is finding writers who are willing to work with Meghan's micromanagement style. Hollywood writers are used to creative freedom, and the idea of having every single line scrutinized and rewritten by someone with no screenwriting experience is a non-starter for most professionals. One source claimed that multiple writers have quietly walked away from the project after initial conversations, realizing that working with Meghan would be a nightmare. The bottom line is this: Hollywood rewards people who are easy to work with, and Meghan is the opposite of that. She has burned bridges, alienated potential collaborators, and earned a reputation that is nearly impossible to shake. One insider said that casting directors, producers, and executives all talk, and the consensus is that Meghan Markle is more trouble than she is worth. No amount of royal connection or tabloid buzz can overcome the reality that she is seen as difficult, controlling, and lacking the talent to justify the drama. The Hollywood dream is dead, and she only has herself to blame. And now we arrive at one of the most telling developments in Meghan's post-royal saga, the Soho House ambassador offer. Let that sink in for a moment. This is a woman who stood on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, who married into one of the most famous families in the world, who had opportunities that most people could only dream of, and now she is reportedly being offered a role as a global ambassador for Soho House, the members club where she used to rely on free travel and accommodation back when she was a struggling actress trying to make it in Hollywood. If that is not a regression, I do not know what is. According to reports from Scooter Scoop, Meghan has been tapped to help modernize Soho House and rebrand its image for a new generation. The club, which was once synonymous with A-list chic and exclusivity, has been battling declining buzz and backlash in recent years. Insiders say that Meghan's role would include hosting empowerment salons and social impact soirees from Malibu to Mayfair. But let's be real here, this is not some groundbreaking partnership. This is Meghan clinging to a brand that gave her relevance back in the day because she has nowhere else to turn. And the desperation is palpable. Meghan recently leaked to her favorite media contacts that she had met up with Ed Sheeran and Serena Williams at Soho House in New York, clearly trying to drum up interest and make it seem like she is still connected to the elite crowd. But here is the thing, nobody is buying it. One longtime Soho House member scoffed at the whole thing, saying that ambassador sounds glamorous, but what does that really mean? It could just be a title and a tab. Translation, Meghan might be getting perks and publicity, but she is not exactly commanding the kind of salary or influence that a true global ambassador would have. Royal commentators have pointed out just how far Meghan has fallen, from the balcony of Buckingham Palace to shilling for Soho House. That is a tanking of extreme measures. And what makes it even more cringe is that Meghan has always had this weird obsession with Soho House. She genuinely seems to believe that being associated with it gives her some sort of status, some kind of cachet that proves she is still part of the cool crowd. But the reality is, most people do not care about Soho House. Sure, there is a membership process, but anyone with money can apply. It is not nearly as exclusive as Meghan seems to think it is. And then there is the question of whether Meghan can even help Soho House attract a younger generation. Insiders say she appeals primarily to older millennials and Gen X, not the trendy 20-somethings that Soho House is trying to court. If they wanted to bring in younger members, they would be better off partnering with someone like Hailey Bieber or Selena Gomez or Taylor Swift. Meghan Markle does not have that kind of pull anymore, if she ever did. This whole partnership feels less like a strategic move and more like two fading brands desperately trying to stay relevant by clinging to each other. So here we are, the Paris meltdown, the midnight phone calls, the red carpet rage, the revolving door of staff, the Hollywood rejection, and now the Soho House regression. When you step back and look at the full picture, it is hard not to see a pattern that is both undeniable and deeply troubling. Meghan Markle has had every opportunity imaginable to build something meaningful, something lasting, something that could have made a real difference. Instead, she has spent the last 5 years alienating professionals, burning bridges, and blaming everyone but herself when things go wrong. And the question everyone is asking now is this: can she ever recover, or is this who she really is? Let's be brutally honest here. Every new project that Meghan announces is immediately shadowed by horror stories from former staff members. Every PR push is undermined by insiders leaking details about her behavior. Every attempt to rebrand is met with skepticism because people have seen this cycle play out too many times before. She hires talented people, micromanages them into the ground, blames them when things fail, and then repeats the process with the next team. It is exhausting to watch, and it is even more exhausting for the people who have to live through it. The Paris disaster is just one example in a long line of incidents that reveal a deeper problem. Meghan allegedly does not listen to advice, does not take responsibility for her mistakes, and does not seem capable of self-reflection. And until that changes, nothing else will change. You can hire the best PR team in the world, you can partner with the biggest brands, you can have all the resources and opportunities money can buy, but if you refuse to grow, refuse to learn, and refuse to accept that maybe, just maybe, you are part of the problem, then you are destined to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Some people might argue that Meghan deserves compassion, that she is under immense pressure and scrutiny, and that the media has been unfair to her. And sure, there is truth to that. But here is the thing. Plenty of public figures face pressure and scrutiny. Plenty Plenty of celebrities deal with negative headlines and public criticism. What separates the ones who thrive from the ones who spiral is the ability to take feedback, adapt, and surround yourself with people who will tell you the truth even when it is uncomfortable. Meghan, according to insiders, has done the exact opposite. She has created an echo chamber where dissent is punished and loyalty is measured by how willing you are to go along with whatever she wants. So can she recover? Technically, yes. Anyone can turn things around if they are willing to do the hard work of genuine self-improvement. But will she? Based on everything we have seen, it does not seem likely. And that is the real tragedy here. Meghan had the world at her feet, and she threw it all away because she could not get out of her own way. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.